All right, recording has been started. All right, I want to thank everyone for being here this evening, taking the time and learning a little bit about our honors program. I do have the honors program here to share this information, this lovely slide with you. Um, I do want to try to keep this to an hour so that way we're not taking too much of your evening. This is currently being recorded and it will be posted to YouTube. Those who are in attendance will get a link to that YouTube link as well if in case you miss any information. Um, I'll start it off with introducing myself. So my name is Amber Brown. I am an admissions counselor here at Mary Wash. So if you have any admissions questions, feel free to put them down in the chat. I'll answer along the way, but I'm gonna hand it off to our lovely honors program.
Thank you, Amber. I really appreciate that introduction. I am Kelly Slunt. I'm the director of the honors program. I'm also a professor of chemistry in the Department of Chemistry and Physics. And I think what we'll do is, as each of us faculty directors begin our part, we'll just introduce each other then, just to keep things moving. So I'm going to start with an overview of the program and hopefully be able to advance the slide here. I wanted to start with just an overview, congratulating you all on your acceptance to UMW and to our honors program, and give you an overview of what is our honors program. Honors education really is different at each institution, so it's one of the things I think that is hard to make direct comparisons about honors programs. Ours, as I think most honors education, is we do strive to provide an intellectual home for high achieving scholars. So we want to have an opportunity for you to come to Mary Washington and be around other students who have similar drive and desires to for creativity, to be a scholar, to be a leader on campus. And a lot of our honor scholars are really very innovative. And one of the other things, of course, is we have students in all majors across all three colleges, across the many schools at the institution, which really makes for very interdisciplinary discussions and very lively creative endeavors. And so we also, as a staff, so you will meet the three program directors today. In addition, we have a program coordinator who is a staff member. So we have three faculty who work very closely with the students. And then we have a staff member who also will work very closely with you. And we do try to provide not only, of course, those educational opportunities, but looking for ways in which you can co-curricularly get engaged through field trips, through activities, but also, trying to look out for your professional future successes as well as, your wellness. And so hopefully that, that this would be a place that you would find yourself wanting to be part of this community. A few years ago, we started a slogan called Be More. And one of the things that I want to stress is our honors program, we don't look to just take a non-honors experience and add more. So I know that seems a little contrary to Be More, but really our Be More is we're looking for you to utilize participation in the honors program as an opportunity for expanding your learning, for developing lifelong learning skills, for just growing and becoming more of a person. So we're not looking for you to necessarily feel like you constantly need to be adding more, but really being more. And Hannah Harris was one of our alums in 2023. She is currently a medical student at GW School of Medicine. And she defined Be More in this quote, which I think really does sum it up, that Be More is an invitation and a reminder that as long as I am learning, growing, and being more in some way, a way that never necessitates best, but simply better, I'm doing just fine. So we also really want to create a safe space for you where you can take intellectual risks and you can start thinking creatively rather than worrying necessarily about being perfect. So that's what we're also hoping that you will get out of our honors community. So some opportunities. Everybody always wants to know what are the opportunities for being part of an honors program. Priority registration is possibly one of the perks that if you ask our current honors students, what is one of the things that they enjoy is priority registration. So honors students, as well as a few other cohorts on campus, get to register for classes ahead of non-priority individuals. This would enable you to make sure that you can get your honors designated requirements completed, but also is often, I find, very useful for honor scholars because a lot of our honor scholars are trying to pursue double majors or a major and a minor or doing a major and being a student athlete. And those things can really, the priority registration can help you do all the things that you want to do in college. We have access to an honors commons. So this is a space that's in Lee Hall, which is, if you have not been to our campus, is pretty much at the heart of our campus. And it is a space where students can come in. Some students study there. Some students stop by to get a cup of a hot beverage in our kitchen. Other students simply just use it for the free printing. And so I think, you know, there's different ways in which you could engage with that space. We do have a capstone requirement, and through that, we do try to offer support for undergraduate research. That could be through opportunities to find undergraduate research or to getting support financially through our undergraduate research grant program that the university runs. I briefly alluded to, we offer field trips, and we try to do field trips that are either academic in nature or social engagement or both. And then also, all three of the faculty who are on this call right now are available for supplemental academic advising. And so, and right now we're in advising season, and I'm meeting frequently right now with honors students to help them navigate. I met today with a young person who is, you know, trying to double major and prepare for law school. And so just making sure that all of those ducks are in a row. And so we're available for academic advising. There is also an opportunity to apply to the GW School of Medicine Early Acceptance Program. So if anyone is interested in medical school, this is an opportunity that we have that is a pathway to that medical school. And we've had a lot of success with placing our students there. And so that is an opportunity that I work as the chemist and as a member of our pre-med committee. That is one of the things I do. One of the other things is we do not have specialized housing for honors. So you really have the opportunity to room with either an honors student or a non-honors student. And that would be, you know, up to you, your preference as to how you would like to engage with housing. And I think I'm going to turn this over now to Dr. DeLauro.
Yes. So I'm Dr. DeLauro, along with Dr. Wells. I'm one of the associate directors of the program, and I'm also a professor of French in the Department of Modern Languages and Literatures. And I'm going to talk to you about City as Text. So Honor City as Text is our, let's call it our signature experience, right? So it's a two-part experience that begins with an early arrival orientation program and then rolls into an 8-week course during the first half of the fall semester. So you might be wondering, what exactly is City as Text? You can see there's a little trademark on the slide. So it's a national pedagogy or a teaching methodology that's trademarked by the National Collegiate Honors Council. And it refers to a practice of treating a city or a place like a text that can be read. So read or interpreted, right? Similar to the way you would a book. So instead of seeing a city as simply a physical environment comprised of buildings and streets, scholars and then students, as we teach them to do, will analyze it as a system of symbols and meanings and stories, right? So just like a book has grammar and words and structure, a city has architecture, monuments, neighborhoods, signs, and all of that communicates messages about the location and power and identity and history, right? So that's what we learn how to do. And then Kelly, if you can advance to the next slide. So this is the sort of nuts and bolts, right, of the practical side of Citius Text, if you will. So it is required, as you can see. And even this was a question we had in advance. It's even required for students from the area who are already familiar with Fredericksburg, because part of what it is learning that pedagogy, not just learning about the city itself. So you can see that you move in on the 16th, which is 3 days before the other students on campus. And that same evening, we'll have a meeting together with the three of us, as well as the administrator, Casey, whom Kelly mentioned earlier. We'll introduce ourselves, explain in more detail the pedagogy of Citius Text, and talk about the schedule for the upcoming days, have dinner together. Over those next 2 days, you're divided into small groups to explore and learn about your new home, right? The city of Fredericksburg. So we also have some of our colleagues who will talk to you. They're experts in basic kind of fieldwork techniques, ethics of observation, anthropology. They'll talk to you about how to read new environments. One of the things that everyone does is take the trolley tour of the city, right? The trolley tour is the way that Fredericksburg as a city has decide to present itself, right? It's the curated view, if you will, of the city. So we want to see what they emphasize, and then later you'll go on your own observations and see how what you witness personally is different or similar to that original presentation that you saw. In addition to the trolley tour, during those 2 days, you'll get to choose your own adventure, right? So you can pick from a wide variety of options, different types of things too. So the Potomac Tribes Museum and Cultural Center, the Military Park, the Civil War Trail, the Mary Washington House, the Center for Creative Arts, the Outdoor Center, Main Street, Fredericksburg, really lots of different options. And you'll create your own schedule, so you'll be with different students in different groups, which is a great opportunity I have not mentioned I should have, to meet obviously your fellow classmates and honors members. So and you spend a good time with them. So you get to really get to know them well. Okay, next slide, please, Kelly. Okay, so as I mentioned before, that 3-day early arrival component rolls into a 1-credit class that meets 1 hour a week for the first 8 weeks of the fall semester. As an incoming honor student, you're automatically enrolled in the course, right? So you don't need to worry about that. And again, you're going to be put into small groups along with 1 or 2 upper class honor students who will serve as your leaders and will be assigned a location in the city, right? And you're going to go and you're going to explore that on foot. No better way to learn about a city, right, than to walk around it. And just for a couple hours, really to see what you can observe. And I personally, I always really find it fascinating to see how groups who are assigned the same area make vastly different observations about, right? They just notice different things, they focus on different things. And the reason I know that is because the course culminates in group presentations where the new honor scholars get to share their observations with us, with their classmates, with other UMW faculty, administrators, as well as community partners and city leaders. So that's the end of the class after those first 8 weeks. And you get to, so it's an opportunity as well to practice some presentation skills and as well. And then I always like to see what students have to say since we don't have any here tonight. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind clicking on the video, we can see how the students describe it.
Citius Text, which began at UMW in 2018, is an introductory program for all incoming honors freshmen. During the pre-arrival course component, scholars will engage in activities that will familiarize them with the Fredericksburg community. In the beginning of the semester, small groups, along with their Citius Text student leaders, will spend a few hours walking through Fredericksburg to explore their assigned areas.
My first experience with CAT was coming in my freshman year. It was definitely so fun. I got to learn about the Fredericksburg community and how our campus impacts it. I feel like it definitely teaches you to look at your surroundings and see how you can make an impact and how also your community makes an impact on you. I also saw how easily you could assimilate to the community. So it just has you thinking about a lot of things that you would never think about before.
During the 8-week course, scholars will hear meaningful presentations from guest speakers that will aid them with conducting and understanding their research. Once all walkthroughs have been completed, small groups will meet back up with their upperclassmen leaders for a reflection and discussion session about their experiences. The following week, small groups will begin working on their final presentations, which will be shown at an important banquet with an audience of UMW administrators and local officials from Fredericksburg.
Honestly, my favorite part was the presentations at the end, just because obviously I knew it was happening in my group, but there were 8 or 9 groups or something, and I had already made a little bit of friends in those other groups, so it was fun to go see everybody talk and present what they had found. And everyone found different things because we all looked at different parts of the area, so it was really cool.
With the recent introduction of the 8-week course, scholars not only have more time to perfect their final presentations, but are also able to build bigger and better connections with their fellow classmates.
My lab partner for all of my honors bio class I actually met her because she sat next to me one time and we introduced ourselves at the pre-arrival. And I met a lot of people who thought they really helped me further on with making friends and stuff like that. So every group has a upperclassman that kind of supports you through the program. They first guide you through the first couple days, and then they help guide your group through the process. My person actually happens to be somebody I'm in a bigger research group with, so it's really helpful to have those connections.
Cities Text is fun. Definitely don't look at it as, oh my gosh, it's more homework. Look at it as more of, this is something that I never got to experience, and look at it as a new adventure, definitely.
Whoever invented this deserves a raise. Can't believe it's already 20.
Thank you. You can go to the next slide, Kelly, please. So Dr. Slend had mentioned earlier that one of the perks of the program is the field trips that we organize. So we take 2 field trips a year, one each semester, and we try to maintain a balance of different types of activities. In recent years, we've done things like it seemed like only a couple weeks ago, went to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond. We have gone to the Cherry Blossom Festival in DC, gotten a tour of the Virginia State Capitol building, taken a hike at Crow's Nest Natural Area Preserve, visited the House and Gardens of Maymont in Richmond, seen a step performance last spring, I think it was, in Richmond. So lots of different types of activities. And we plan those in conjunction with HSAC, which is the Honor Student Advisory Council that you could serve on if you would like to. So it's a sort of collaborative choice between the faculty and staff and the students as well in terms of what activities we do. Okay, next slide. And finally, honor sponsored events, again, together with HSAC, the honors program staff organizes activities of all different sorts. Maybe they're sort of intellectual in nature, could be purely for entertainment, professional development, community service, all sorts of different opportunities. So sorry, I live on a busy street, that was loud. So just last 2 weeks ago, HSAC organized, in conjunction with Valentine's Day, writing cards for senior citizens living in local nursing home facilities and passed those out. So that was more of a community service type activity. We do sort of art, what is it called? Diamond art last year was very popular. And then in terms of academic and professional programming, there might be things like an opportunity to meet experts or other speakers, focus on how to develop a resume, talking about sort of workplace practices and policies, things like that. So the ones that are the most popular, we have 3 that are regular activities. We have a logo paint there, and there are some of the ones that are pictured here, right? So logo painting, so the logo for the honors program you can see in the bottom left here, sort of transferred onto a canvas and then paint that. And they are then displayed in the Honors Commons. Then Dr. Slunt hosts a dinner at her house with the other faculty in the program. And then you can see the two images on the right are taken from the fan favorite, which is a cutthroat gingerbread house building contest the week before finals every fall semester. And that is definitely, I think, everyone's favorite activity. So all honors scholars are welcome to attend those programs, but many or most of them are open to friends as well. I think that's it for me. I think it's me.
All right, I will take over from here. So I'm Dr. Robert Wells, and I am an associate professor of music at UMW. Primarily teach music theory and piano. I also direct the UMW Indian Music Ensemble, so do a number of different things. And then, like Dr. DeLauro, I'm one of the associate directors of the honors program. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what's happening. You know, we've heard about City as Text, we've heard about kind of an overview of the program, and we've heard about some of the social and professional sorts of events and activities you could participate in. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the curriculum. So what would you actually do as a student in the honors program? What sorts of processes you go through from when you come here through the end of the program? One of which we've already mentioned, which is City as Text. So the City as Text really is that kind of kickoff to the program where you really get to not only get a sense of what being an honor student is about, but also you just really get to start to know kind of a cohort of colleagues that you potentially could remain close with across your time at UMW. And so it's really kind of a community building time as well as a kickstart to the honors program. Now, another essential part of being in the honors program is honors designated courses. And as Dr. Slunt alluded to, there's not, honors courses at UMW aren't just kind of piles of work, or we don't do honors courses like some institutions do where you take a regular course and you add a long paper to the end of it and it's honors. So we approach honors courses a little bit differently. Our honors courses are across the curriculum, so all kinds of different majors, different disciplines have honors designated courses. And these courses are just completely thought through in a different way than non-honors courses, and that there tends to be a lot of really innovative teaching. There tends to be a lot of collaboration, a lot of student-driven learning, a lot of meta-analysis, so like thinking about thinking. So the courses through and through just have a different feel, and honor students will tell you, if you ever get to talk to one of our honors students, they're really enthusiastic about these courses. So they're a very special part of the UMW curriculum. So we require that you take at least 12 credits of honors designated courses, and you can take more than that. There are many students who, you know, maybe you only have to take 4 3-credit courses, but they might end up taking 5 or 6. So one could certainly take more than that 12 credits if they wanted to. And this could include the freshman seminar. Some of the freshman seminars that every UMW student takes, some of those are also honors designated. So you could actually get the FSEM checked off as well as getting your first honors course. Now I want to get into some of our kind of more unique courses, one of which is Honors Service Learning. And this is a course I'm teaching this semester, actually. Basically, this is a chance to engage as a student, not just within the classroom, but actually beyond the bounds of the classroom, and in many cases even beyond the bounds of UMW. And basically the way this course works is every student develops some kind of individual service project, and it's usually something that involves volunteering for the community or for UMW in some way. And part of the course is it's not just the volunteering and logging hours, but there's a reflective component. So I've talked to them a bit this semester about how it's not just service, but service learning. So there's this learning component that's really essential to it. And we meet once a month as people are doing their service projects to reflect on not only how things are going, but we also read like poetry and literature and articles relating to service that can be kind of allow students to reflect beyond just what activities are they doing, but what does it mean to serve? What does it mean to volunteer? How can I become a contributing member to society? So that's a very special course to our program, the service learning course. Now, toward the end of the time at UMW, every honor student completes a capstone project. And so the capstone project, it could look a lot of different ways depending on the student's discipline. And in a little bit, I will show you some examples of some of the projects we had in the last semester's Fall Honors Symposium, which will give you a sense of the breadth and depth of what students do for this project. But it could be anything from a traditional research paper to a laboratory study to an artistic portfolio, maybe an education series of lesson plans. I had a student that I advised on a capstone a few years ago who basically did a project he was a music major. His project was a senior piano recital where he practiced repertoire for the recital. He composed some of his own pieces. He developed publicity. He made the program, did research on all of the music. And so this all became his capstone project. So really the way this project could look depends on the student, depends on the discipline, depends on their interests. And we've also seen some really interesting interdisciplinary projects. So we'll have students that actually combine like maybe a major and a minor interest. Like there was a student a couple years ago who was like a psychology and history double major. And so her capstone project dealt with like the psychology of history. And I don't remember the exact details, but she kind of combined those two interests into a single project. And another thing about the capstone project, for many students, this is kind of a gateway into, like if they do grad school later, into continued research or a continued artistic project or written work or something. So for many students, the capstone project is the beginning to something that even goes beyond the honors curriculum. Now, in addition to some of so the City as Text, coursework, service learning, capstone project, there are some other requirements that happen across the time at UMW, one of which is a leadership requirement. And this is not a course students register for like a traditional course. Basically, they propose a project that involves demonstrating leadership in some way. They complete it over the course of their chosen semester, and they complete a reflection at the end. So that's very student-driven, like many aspects of our honors program. There's also, as students are getting ready for that capstone project I was just talking about, we don't just leave them kind of floundering, figuring things out on their own. There is a capstone prep course, which is like a 2-hour workshop that they do before proposing their capstone project. So we do give them a lot of support as they work out how to even do this major project and propose it and potentially make revisions based on feedback. And we also have, each semester, every honors student goes to at least one, what we call co-curricular events. So everything I've talked about thus far, you might think of as curricular, so they're part of the honors curriculum. And the co-curricular events are things that are kind of complementing what a student does academically or in the classroom. So these are things like maybe music concerts, theater plays, art exhibitions, lectures. And so every student goes to at least one of these co-curricular events each semester and then does a brief reflection on it. And so this really encourages students to kind of get out of their bubble, get out and really explore whether it's what kinds of cultural events are being offered at Fredericksburg or in Fredericksburg at UMW. And I've had, reading many of the reflections, a student might say, well, I probably wouldn't have thought to go to this orchestra concert except for this co-curricular requirement, but now I'm really glad I did because now I can't stop listening to Mozart as I'm studying. So it really is kind of an enriching experience as they do that through the course of their time in the program. Dr. Slunt, may I see the next slide? So the capstone project could involve research, as I mentioned, but there are many other research opportunities for honors students who want to do some engaged research, like the URES 197. This is actually a way a student can get course credit for contributing to a faculty member's research project. So if you're interested in collaborating with a faculty member who maybe shares disciplinary interests with you, the URES 197 is a great way of getting onto one of those faculty projects and getting course credit for it. There are also lots of opportunities for independent study. So almost any discipline I can think of has independent study opportunities where you could basically find a faculty advisor who's interested in working with you, develop a project topic, develop a project set of goals, and then basically that becomes like, again, anywhere between 1 in 6 credits. It's a flexible credit number that you get to choose, and you develop that in consultation with the faculty advisor. And like I said, this could be traditional research, much like the capstone. This could also be something that's maybe more focused toward artistic creation or education, developing lesson plans. So there are a lot of different ways independent studies could look. And one thing about UMW being a smaller university is there are a lot more opportunities to really impactfully engage with faculty members in that way. We also have some summer opportunities. So there's the Summer Science Institute, which is a 10-week it's basically a 10-week research project that students complete over the summer that culminates in a final symposium. And many students actually continue those projects into the academic year. And some students have even used these projects to motivate a capstone project later on for honors. And one thing that's nice about this institute is you get full room and board provided by the university. You also get a stipend on top of that. Similar to the Summer Science Institute, so for those of us who maybe are more into the arts, humanities, and social sciences, there is also an Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences Summer Institute. And this one usually takes place in the first summer session in May and June. And this involves working with groups of about 2 or 4 with a faculty mentor. And this too involves room and board and a small stipend. So those are some great opportunities to really get engaged over the summer and potentially could form the springboard to future projects, either for honors or for one's major. May I see the next slide, Dr. Slint? Thank you. So I've just included a couple of examples of recent capstone projects. These are actually just some that came from, we have every fall an honors symposium where honors students who are presenting, who are doing capstone work will give presentations on their either research or whatever projects they happen to be doing. So I just chose a couple just to show you the wide variety of what students do with the capstone. So some, like the first and third, were more kind of on the either biological or environmental science kinds of perspectives. There's a business one, that second one. Really wide variety. The picture books one was an education capstone. So it's always really fascinating to see these presentations just because it really shows just the really wide variety and diversity of topics that our honor students are interested in. And really just shows kind of the wide disciplinary representation that our honors program has across the university. All right, may we go to the next slide? Now, speaking of over the summer, before your first semester at UMW as an honors student, you're actually going to complete a first-year questionnaire, and this is where you get to indicate not only things like intended major, intended minor, transfer credits you anticipate through like AP and IB and things like that, but you can also indicate some of your top choices for things like general education, foreign languages, and so forth. So that first-year questionnaire is really important, so make sure whenever you get the call to do that, do that as soon as you can. Based on that questionnaire, the honors program staff and academic services will actually build you a first semester schedule. So we try to take into account your interests, your intended major, your intended minor, and try to, and the fact that you're in honors, and try to build a really good schedule for that first semester. And so some of the things that you can expect to see on that schedule, one is a freshman seminar, and we try to get honor students, we don't always have full control over the freshman seminar. That's just kind of added for us in many cases, but you may get an honors designated freshman seminar depending on because you actually get to choose, indicate what you're most interested in from the FSIM offerings that are there. But some of those are honors designated, but you'll have some kind of freshman seminar on your schedule. You will have City as Text, Honors 101. And then the rest of your schedule will be filled out with things like courses related to your major, general education, and we try to get honor students if we can. It's not always possible in that first semester, but we try to see if we can get honor students into at least one honors designated course in their first semester. And you'll also get the chance to meet with an academic advisor over the summer so you can discuss your particular schedule in a little bit more detail, as well as any transfer credits that you might qualify for. All right, maybe we go to the next slide. Now, we've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but the way advising works, you have initially when you come to UMW, your freshman seminar instructor is your advisor until you declare your major. And then once you declare your major, you get assigned or choose a major advisor, and then they become your main advisor for the rest of your time at UMW. If you have a double major, you will actually have two advisors, so one for each discipline that you're majoring in. So we always tell students the either FSIM advisor or major advisor, they're your primary advisor at UMW. But for anything honors specific, Dr. DeLauro, Dr. Slunt, and I then kind of, we act as supporting advisors for anything honors related. So students can meet with us at any time. We do have open office hours throughout the week where honor students can come by with honors related questions. They can also set up appointments with us whenever course registration is happening. And we also do a senior check sheet toward the end of the honors program just to make sure that they're on track to finish their honors requirements before they graduate. So there is a lot of advising support, both within honors and outside of honors. Maybe go to the next slide. Now, I mentioned transfer credit a little bit ago, so this link or QR code will take you to the university's policies for transfer credit, including advanced placement and international baccalaureate. So we very frequently have honor students transferring in credit through these means. So this website just provides a little bit more details about how courses transfer, which courses transfer as various UMW offerings, and so forth. All right, can we see the next slide? So to finish out, congrats again on your acceptance, both to UMW and to the honors program. And I do want to go to a general question and answer now. Now that said, if there are any questions that weren't addressed this evening, or I know what always happens to me is I'll think of questions like as soon as the meeting ends. So if you're in that situation, don't worry. You can email the honors program at honorsprogram@umw.edu, and we'd be happy to follow up with any questions you might have after this session. But for now, why don't we go ahead and open up the floor to any of the thoughts and questions that you have.
Robert or Dr. Wells, I'm going to start with two that came through in the chat, and they were mostly related to being a student athlete and being in the honors program. I want to assure you all that we have lots of student athletes across almost every sports level within the program, and that they are able to successfully do both. One of the things to keep in mind for fall and winter athletes, we do recognize that there could be some conflicts with City as Text, and we work very closely with the athletic directors who then work with the coaches and to try to resolve as much as possible the conflicts. And this is why also the City as Text course is in the evening. So that is why it's at 7 o'clock on Monday evenings. That is an agreed upon time that there are typically no competitions, and that the coaches would release release students from any practice obligations. In terms of building schedules for athletes, we are also told which athletic teams students are on, and we strive to coordinate times in which that can work as best as possible. I did also ask a question: is City as Text Monday evening coordinated with the theater program? We try very hard to coordinate with as many as possible. We have occasionally had a student who is participating in a fall theater production that has to be excused from one of those Monday evening courses because of a theater commitment. But I will also tell you that one of our City as Text coordinators, who was the coordinator for numerous years, was the lighting expert. Was the student lighting coordinator for theater and was able to make it work. So again, we do encourage our students to do multiple of these activities as much as possible. And so Monday evening seems to be the best time for all of these activities to enable honors students to do that. So I hope that answers those questions that I saw in the chat.
Dr. Sun, I did see one question. Let me go ahead and post it in the chat. This question is, could you please tell me how many freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors are in the honors program? Does level of participation slash cohort vary each year?
So that's a really good question. As we strive to admit about 10% of the incoming class each year to the honors program, which typically gives us a class of about 75. Let's say that we start with a class of about 75 honors students. And we also have an opportunity for students to join the program later. These are students that we call Track B. And in fact, yesterday, our faculty advisory committee just met and admitted, I believe, 17 new students through that track. So I would say that each typical class year, we're in that range. We do see a little bit of attrition. Some of that is that students discover they want to do other things that, or perhaps, we unfortunately sometimes have to dismiss students who don't meet the GPA requirement of a 3.2. But for the most part, I think we have about an 80% retention within the honors program, and we have about a 60% graduation rate in which we see the students who graduate with university honors. We have about a 90% graduation rate in terms of students who come to Mary Washington, enter as an honors student, and actually graduate from UMW. So I don't know if that actually answered the question, but I think we currently have about 330 students in the program over the 4 years. And I think we're looking at 60 graduates this year. So.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Slunt. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Did anyone have any in general questions, or maybe what does a typical schedule look like for an honor student? Maybe what can I expect my first year? Is it challenging? Is it hard? No such thing as a dumb question.
I see thumbs up, but I don't know. I guess they're thumbs up. So, typical schedules for our first year students. I think Dr. Wells covered some of that. Our students are going to do their honors, well, not necessarily their honors first year seminar, a first year seminar course. They're going to be engaged in City as Text for the first 8 weeks of the semester. And then when we build the schedules, we try to put students in 1 or 2 courses related to their major or majors of choice, and then a general education course to fill out, or an elective course. So it really depends. I can speak mostly to the STEM students. The STEM students are going to probably take 2 science courses because, that is just what a STEM major takes. One of the things I think that students sometimes don't realize is in college, you're not going to necessarily have a history, an English, a PE. You don't have that type of schedule that you have in and from high school. It's going to be more shaped around your interests. So if you're a music major, you will probably be in a music theory class and a music performance class, depending upon your interest. Are you a musician in terms of an instrument, or are you a vocalist? You might take private lessons. And so if you're an English major, you're likely going to take English 295, which is this introductory course, plus linguistics. So, it really just depends upon your major. Brooke, I saw a question about study abroad that I'm going to pass to you.
And I was going to add something to the schedule build as well, since we've been mentioning that, and then I'll take the study abroad question. I was just thought it might be worth mentioning that although we do build the schedules, and that's meant to be to assist you, right? But they're not set in stone, right? So at the first 2 weeks of every semester, whether it's your first or your eighth, you still have wiggle room to drop and add courses. And in some cases, for example, if you have, which many of you likely do, have AP credit or something, it's not yet in the system. So we might schedule you at a level of some course that you have already gotten credit for. So you'll need to adjust that. But so it's not at all, you don't have to take the schedule as it is, right? We try to do what we think would be interesting and best meets your needs, but you can certainly change that. Study abroad, so I actually run a study abroad program. We have a lot of faculty-led study abroad programs. In fact, I was just chatting with some of my colleagues. I believe we had 5 over spring break. So we have both summer study abroad, which is what I do. So 3 to 4 week programs in the summer, some as long as 6. And then spring break programs that run about 8 to 10 days, depending. And some of them coordinate with the class that's offered in the spring semester. So the students will learn something, and then, like, let's say a colleague of ours does, I don't know what the official title is, but basically coral reef restoration. This is one I'm very envious of and would love to be. You need 2 faculty members. I volunteer myself. But they learn how to do that, and then they go to Bonaire, and it's a scuba diving trip, and they dive and they do the coral reef restoration, right? So they prep for it academically before leaving, and then go on that trip and return and continue. So besides the faculty-led programs, I think the faculty as a whole is very enthusiastic about students studying abroad. We will support any nationally recognized program because of the flexibility of, I mean, probably given the way we've talked today, it sounds like you're restrained in terms of requirements, but really you have like a third of the classes that you take are for your major, a third are for the general education, and then a full third, which is around 40 credits, right? So that's a lot of possibilities. You can do what you want. And so maybe as an honor student, a couple of those would be some honors classes, but you would still be left with a good number. And as Dr. Wells had mentioned earlier, your FSEM might also be an honors class, so you can double dip, right? So you might not even eliminate with the gen eds, you might still have that full third left. So that really gives you plenty of wiggle room if you want to study abroad, if you want to have, since I teach in the languages, I probably am more familiar with students studying abroad generally, but I know of many students who are double majors. One was a French major in environmental science, so nothing at all related to one another, who studied abroad for a full year and still graduated on time. So there's a lot of flexibility. I don't know if that answers, talk about study abroad was a broad prompt. I hope I answered. I'm happy to answer any of the other questions, but hopefully I covered what you were looking for.
And I can maybe jump in and say a few words about the AI question too, or at least partly take this one. I will say, yeah, the questions about how do you see AI impacting education at UMW, honors or otherwise. One thing, I guess a couple of things to say about this. One is we do now have a Center for AI that is very kind of tracking the latest trends in AI and trying to determine what are the implications both for being in the university and the job market. So for better or for worse, whatever we feel about AI, UMW is very focused on trying to figure that out, like trying to figure out what does this mean for faculty, what does this mean for students. So UMW is really tracking the AI thing really closely, and actually we've been encouraged in our classes to try to find ways of incorporating some AI education. So like in my music theory class this past semester, we did a project that I had students do a project that basically involved trying to use AI to compose a piece of music and then looking at the strengths and weaknesses, like was this helpful, was this harmful, what was the experience like. So across the university there are more and more intentional ways of trying to navigate this AI thing and what it means. The other thing I'll say about the honors program, because I know all of us are worried about what does this mean for jobs, what does this mean for when students are graduating and going out trying to apply. And one of the things I'll highlight, that honors curriculum that I mentioned earlier, in addition to helping students grow academically, I mean, it really is intended to help them grow as humans, even beyond just who they are in the grade book or whatever. So, you know, the curriculum is developed in a way that students are, in addition to learning more about their disciplines, they're developing skills like leadership, communication, critical thinking, community outreach, professionalism, all of these kinds of skills that will really help them sell themselves and really help them be able to advertise the things they do that AI really can't do, at least in any kind of substantial way. So, I mean, that's one thing I will say about the way the honors program is set up. It will give them skills that they can sell on their CV, on their resume, or in grad school or job applications. Some really just concrete skills that will set them apart in this kind of like AI-infused workplace now. And I don't know, I'm not a stats person, I don't know the answers to some of your questions about graduate school or job placement. I don't know if, Dr. Slunt, do you know any of these numbers?
I don't know specific numbers off of the top of my head, but one of the things I would actually direct you all to is on our website. You can find our Honors Outlook newsletters. We publish a newsletter every semester, and in that we try to have each of our graduates telling a little bit about where they plan to go and how honors education impacted them at Mary Washington. So I think related to what Dr. Wells was saying in terms of, we're trying to develop the whole human and in their ability to navigate a changing world through honors. I think you can see in there where the honors has impacted, but you can also see the incredible successes that our honor scholars are having. They are getting into graduate programs. Again, like I said, I don't know that I have the statistical numbers exactly as to whether it's their first choice or their second choice, but you can look at that and see that a large percentage of our honor scholars are leaving UMW with what I would say is a career outcome, whether it's employment, a job, or and so I do think we are either equivalent to what the university is doing or outpacing it in terms of the percentage of the success of our students. So if you want specific examples, like I said, I would point you to those honors outlooks because they really do a nice job of portraying where our students are at. There was a question about scholarships. There's not a definite scholarship that all honor scholars receive. So we do not have that as a perk at Mary Washington. There are scholarships, though, that students can apply for, and honor scholars are often the achieving students, for merit-based scholarships would be eligible for. I would encourage students to contact and look at our website for scholarship opportunities, because I would also encourage you just get into that portal, because sometimes there are some unique scholarships that maybe you fit. I know as in the chemistry department, we have a scholarship that's designated for certain population, like you come from a certain area, and we often struggle to give away those scholarships. So I would encourage you to look at the scholarship management portal for those things. There's a question is, how heavily integrated is AI in the UMW student workload? Are students expected to use it now? I would say that depends upon the courses that the students are taking. One of the things, as Dr. Wells did a really nice job explaining, is we are cognizant of the effect of AI on the workplace, and we want to train students to be able to make intelligent decisions about using these tools and how to engage it. And so as a chemist, I am now using it in my class. We're using best practices from the American Chemical Society about how to start engaging with AI. But, I'm not certain that, and in my course, if a student was really, really opposed to it, we would have a conversation about, why they do not feel comfortable using it. But we are trying to prepare students for the workplace and the world that they're entering. I don't know if anybody else wanted to add anything else about that with AI.
Yeah, and in terms of this is something that all the faculty are thinking about a lot. I'm actually, I'm part of a faculty book club right now that's going through this book on AI and writing specifically. So actually we're meeting tomorrow for our next meeting. So yeah, at the faculty level, even kind of behind the scenes, like we're very engaged in trying to navigate like what does this mean for teaching, for student learning, how can we help students figure out the role of AI and how to use it, but also develop skills that maybe AI can never replace. So some of those things like critical thinking, leadership, how can we still teach those essential skills while AI is kind of in the picture? So that's something, yeah, the faculty are very much invested in trying to improve the way that we're presenting this to students and really just understand what it all means.
And I saw Dr. Wells put a link to our Outlook newsletters in the chat, so I encourage you to look at that. Will there be opportunities for data science members to explore the impact of AI on the educational sphere? Absolutely. There is a lot of research opportunities related to AI. In fact, one of my pleasures of my job as director of the honors program is to also help students who are interested in applying for prestigious scholarships. And recently, one of the students applying for a Goldwater scholarship, their research project is involving, now it's not AI in the educational sphere, but they were looking at developing AI bots for looking at political rhetoric on social media and how would an AI bot interact on social media with these political threads. So, and that's a research project with one of our faculty members in the computer science department. So there are definitely opportunities there for anyone who is interested in that.
And I will say with the question that just popped up about AI and academic integrity, for those of you who don't know, UMW does have a very strong honor system. So students, whenever they start, every student takes signs and recites the honor pledge. That's basically, to put it short, affirming that I'm not going to lie, cheat, or steal. That's the essence of the honor code at UMW. And this is really part of every aspect of life at UNW. And in the last few years, AI has become a part of the honor code, and the honor council that addresses honor violations has had to start looking at what does AI mean for academic integrity. And so we have started having cases where faculty members have brought evidence to the honor council where students have been using AI in an unauthorized way, and then that goes through the regular honor process. So that is something that we've started to have to deal with as an institution on the academic integrity side. But and there are professors who are going back to some more written assignments, but again, that kind of depends on the professor.
Dr. Wells, there's a question to repeat the name of the book you're reading for your faculty development class on AI.
Yes. Let me get the title and author. Let's see.
While you're doing that, I'm going to answer. So the question, advisors may not fully receive your AP credits by the time you make your July appointments, depending upon how fast AP scores are rolled. But if not, like Dr. DeLauro mentioned, you can revise your schedule up until.
But yeah, that's the book that we're looking at. Yeah, More Than Words, How to Think About Writing in the Age of AI.
All right. Okay, I don't think I see any more questions. So I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank everyone again for coming out tonight and hearing a little bit about the honors program. Thank you so much to our directors for taking the time and sharing about the honors program. But yeah, this concludes our webinar. So thank you so much for everyone for attending.
Thank you all and congratulations. And if you're on campus for a visit, please stop and see us.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good evening.